We might be very soon involved in some kind of major conflagration in the Middle East, as Nigel Farage was telling us about Iran. Keir Starmer, I think, by the way, he's dodging Prime Minister's questions today. I think Angela Rayner's up because he presumably is still on his way back from Canada. But the G7 sort of ceased to be of any use to man or beast as soon as Donald Trump walked away from it the other day, didn't it?
And, you know, you've got the President of the European Council there. No one's ever heard of him. Right. You've got the President of the European Commission there. I mean, there's more EU people there.
Right. And then Zelensky shows up and he gets a big hug.
Yeah, and you have to say that suddenly America looks much stronger on its own than it looks with the G7. Whether that's good or bad, I don't know.
Yeah.
Trump and I, one of the first things that really Trump and I bonded over was Iran.
Yeah.
That Obama, Cameron, the European Union all thought, oh, these Iranians, they're really lovely people. We can do a deal with them.
Yes.
The JCPOA deal, as it was known at the time, freed up tens of billions of dollars in return for them promising not to continue to enrich uranium. What did they do? Took the money to fund Hezbollah, the Houthis, Hamas, and continued.
And to rearm themselves with a load of drones and missiles. They've now been firing at Israel.
And carried on with enrichment. And we've just had this completely wrong. I'm one of those people, Mike, I was opposed to the Libyan war. I thought it was crackers. Whoever bad Gaddafi was.
And so it proved.
And so it proved. I was against the Iraq war too. I'm generally against war unless it's needed.
Right.
I don't think Israel had any choice but to take the action they took. Here we are on day 6, and it looks like the mullahs are teetering.
Well, apparently they only fired something like 25 missiles last night, so they're obviously running out.
They're running out. The one thing that we do know with the 2 big nuclear facilities is that a lot of the kit's underground. It's going to take this MOAB, the mother of all bombs, that the Americans have, to take that out. Probably for the first time ever, I'm for regime change. I think the poor Persian people, and by the way,
so are they, by the way.
I've worked with Persians, I've met them all over the world. They deserve better than this awful, brutal regime. There's a risk of what comes next. Of course there is. But I actually think that Trump will intervene. I know there are voices within the Republican movement like Steve Bannon saying don't get involved. I think Trump will do it because he'll see it as being a good thing for the world.
Well, if you think about it, as you say, I mean, they are the kind of the spider at the centre of all the terror in the Middle East. And if you take them out, and by the way, I was talking to a former Israeli government spokesman just a little while ago. He said, you know, privately they're saying in Saudi and in the Emirates, they're with you. They want Israel to blow the hell out of it.
Do us all a favour.
Exactly right. A couple of other questions for you. One on France from Steve in Nottingham. He says, question for Nigel, what would he do about France when the small boats are turned back? No doubt the French would throw their dummy out the pram and close their borders or put heavy restrictions on. Richard Tyson, I've talked about this quite a lot, you know, turning the boats back physically. I mean, have you actually got a plan?
Well, there is I mean, UNCLOS law of the sea that would absolutely allow us to do that. Of course there'd be a huge diplomatic incident. Of that there is no doubt. Of that there is no doubt at all. Just like when Tony Abbott, the Australian Prime Minister, towed the boats back to Indonesia. I mean, the hue and cry. Oh, the screams from our Foreign Office and the EU and the UN and everybody. Look, the current course we're on is failing. And we can sit and criticise the French, you know, who've already had £800 million. And from Reeves's statement last week, I can see there's another couple of £100 million going their way. Even if the French do their stuff and start dragging them out of the water, those boats are launching from Dunkirk down to Berck. It's 100 miles of French beach. We will never stop the boats from leaving France. They need 10,000 soldiers on the beaches to stop every boat from going. The reason they're coming isn't the French's fault. The reason they're coming, it's our fault. It's about time we faced up to that.
Exactly right. One here from, where is it? Oh, Jane in Milton Keynes. Morning, Mike. Lovely show. Can you ask Nigel what you would do for us WASPI women? I bet that's not a question you've been asked very often.
You know, I've never made any false promises to WASPI women. I'm sorry, it's done, it's over, it's not going to get changed.
OK. Let's talk a bit about the EU, because Keir Starmer, as you say, has been sort of hobnobbing with the EU more than he has really with anybody. I mean, you talk about his enjoyment of being on the world stage. He loves nothing more than popping over to Brussels and giving away some more of our sovereignty. You know, we saw David Lammy sneaking off to Gibraltar the other day, and it now means that if you fly into Gibraltar as a British citizen, you have to see a Spanish border guard before they let you into our own sovereign territory, which seems insane. Do you worry that that is the beginning of a giveaway of Gibraltar?
The Gibraltarians are in a tight spot.
Yeah.
You know, I spoke privately to the Chief Minister last week.
Right.
Down there. I've had family interests in Gibraltar going back many, many years. Yeah, I can't stand the fact that, you know, a British citizen could be refused by an EU guard.
Right.
It's unlikely, but it's theoretically possible. I'm going to watch the Gibraltar thing very, very closely. What I do know is that Lammy's heart's not in this.
No.
He doesn't believe in the overseas territories, the dependencies at all. On the EU reset, well, look what's happened.
Yeah.
Smoky bacon crisps. Have you seen what's going on?
We talked this the other day. I mean, is it anything to do with the fact that it's bacon? Is it anything to do with the fact that, I mean, the ludicrous idea that you can buy, you know, Lay's crisps in Spain. Whenever I go to Spain, you can buy Lay's crisps everywhere, which originate in America, which I would imagine are far more likely to be cancerous than anything that we produce. But, you know, they're saying it might be cancerous.
I will not have it. I will fight to defend smoky bacon flavoured crisps.
In the old days, somebody would be flying over France and dropping bags of crisps on them.
We can joke about it. And it's almost back to the old days of the Kirby Cucumber directive and all that. But what it shows is the extent to which Starmer has harmonised all of our food standards and regs, drink standards and regs, to EU law. Not, by the way, just the EU laws now, but the ones they make in the future. Yeah. And, OK, it's easier to trade shellfish and food back and forth from Europe. Certainly, what it also means, Mike, is a lowering of our food standards, a lowering of our animal standards, something people in Britain take very, very seriously. It also makes it harder to import oranges from South Africa or anywhere else. And I just, everywhere you look, whether it's Chagos, whether it's the EU, whether it's the first steps in Gibraltar, you can't help but get the feeling that it's a government of university students still stuck with this left-wing ideology, basically dislike of Britain, of what it is and what it stands for. And that's where they're in big trouble, because there's a huge patriotic base of working people out there, you know, who've been allied to the Labour Party through their families pretty much since the end of World War One. And that's fracturing in a big way.
And it has, and I think the grooming report has really proved that. Louise from Ipswich is asking this question, which a lot of people have asked. As Prime Minister, will you deport all foreign criminals, including those who have dual nationality, and their dependents?
I will be breaking a story next week that is off the charts. It's about foreign criminals in British prisons not being deported, even though they want to be.
They want to be.
Well, let's say you're from Lithuania. And you've been given a 15-year prison sentence. At least if you go back to Lithuania to serve the time, you know, your mum can come and see you. You know? We're not, even though people want to be deported, they're not being deported. The idea that we don't have as big a shortage of prison places as you think if we get rid of the foreign criminals, and we're just not doing it.
Well, there's 12,000 odd, isn't there? I mean, that would make a big gap. I mean, we saw one just the other day, I think it was in the Mail, a guy who was given 77 years in prison for being the sort of ringleader of a rape gang some time ago. He's now been freed for several years, but because he gave up his Pakistani citizenship, he now isn't any longer a dual citizen, so they won't deport him. Can you get around that then? Can you deport those people? Well, I think
with most of this, yes. Most of this, yes. Everything that was done after the war in forming the European Convention on Human Rights and the court that backed it up, you know, it was there as an early warning system to stop what happened to the Jews in Europe in the 30s happening again. We can understand exactly why. But with three-quarters of a century on from that, we can't stay part of that anymore. And we're probably going to have to change a few British judges too, because they seem to lean on this stuff the whole time.
They do.
We need a radical change, not tinkering around the edges, but a radical change with the basis of law upon which we can decide who comes and who leaves our country.
So what's next for reform, finally? You did well in Scotland. Although,
we did.
You know, people are going, oh, but they didn't win.
I know.
Going, yeah, but they did come very, very close to actually, you know, the people who did win.
Yeah, failure by reform in Scotland.
I know, absolutely. It's all over. Forget it. Just go home, pack your bags. But obviously, you know, people are concerned, are you able to form a big enough rump of a party to win enough seats, because you know the polls say you'll win enough seats to be the next government. But can you find enough decent people, I suppose?
Look at what we've done in the space of a year. I mean, it's a meteoric rise.
Yeah.
You know, we've been forming branches all over the country, getting thousands of candidates, and now's the moment to change the structure of the party, which is exactly what I'm doing right now. And when I leave here, I'll go straight to the office and keep working on it. So we've got a new chairman, formerly of this manor.
Yes, indeed.
Dr. David Bull.
Dr. David.
Who, you know, I want someone to be a front-facing chairman, to tour the country, to go around the studios. David will be brilliant at that.
Yeah.
I'll be appointing a deputy chairman today who will come in and look after the nuts and bolts of party rule books, putting into place the next stage of our democratisation, namely a board that runs the party. We've got a new director of communications and operations in the party, and Zia Youssef, who's done absolutely manful work over the last 11 months with a burden on his shoulders that was utterly ridiculous.
Yeah.
And he and I have frankly been inseparable over the last 11 months. He is now heading up Doge. And as I've said already, sitting with you this morning, already the Sun is running stories of what he's discovering.
Yeah.
And I think what we're going to see...
I think that's going to be a very rich vein, isn't it?
I think what we're going to see is that local government in Britain has had no scrutiny, despite the billions that go through it. Money has been wasted. Contracts have been signed for long periods of time. And if it's that bad at county councils, what's it like in Whitehall?
Yeah. Fair enough. I've got to ask you the same question we've asked Keir Starmer, I suppose. What's been your biggest mistake, do you think, since you came back, if you have one?
I think I probably have spent too much time in the office, too much time doing administrative stuff, too much time trying to build the party. I probably could have spent more time actually out on the road, even though I spend more than any other.
Yeah.
And that's why now, putting a team in place, I'm not saying once it's done I can forget about it, but I need to be out doing what I'm best at. So I probably overemphasised the office side of work rather than being outside.
Right. Nigel Farage, great to see you. Thank you very much.
Lovely to be here.
Nigel Farage, leader of Reform UK.